They called us eagles and said, "You are not like chickens eating SHIT on the floor. You are an eagle,
Hmm.
you are made to fly, and you can do whatever it is that you want to do."
You mentioned obviously that when you were pregnant, you thought about what kind of person that you wanted your daughter to see you as.
You keep saying you don't like it here, but you haven't done anything about it. You keep saying you don't want to be in finance, but have you really tried? I'd kind of unlocked something in myself that said, I can actually do what I want. And if I want more from life, it's up to me to go get it because I can't just sit around here.
Why should moms be interested in perhaps using AI or being in tech?
If I wanted to change careers today, I would be using AI to do several things.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Busy Moms Get It Done podcast. My name is Esther Shittu. I am your host. And before I really introduce today's guest, I just have one favor. If you're listening on any podcast platform, please do me the favor of just either subscribing to the podcast or just following it or going to our Instagram page and following my Instagram page. That will really be such a blessing for me. And if you're looking and you're watching on YouTube, please first mind the introduction. But also subscribe to the channel. It will be such a huge help to just help this channel grow so that more people can see the podcast. I mean, I have such amazing women on this podcast and such amazing stories, and I just want more and more people to see it. And so if you can just please do me that huge favor of just hitting that subscribe button. That will be awesome. So today's guest is Stephanie, and she's otherwise known on Instagram as Steph X Tech. She is so inspiring, and just funny story as an aside. I have been inactive for 2 weeks. I was inactive for 2 weeks before last week's episode because I had a lot at work, and then I went to a conference for work, and I was walking through the halls of this conference. Lo and behold, who did I end up meeting in person? Stephanie. And we were like, so funny. She works in AI and tech, and so she is a mom, an immigrant, a founder, a woman in tech. She is helping other people get in tech, and she gives such actionable insights on this podcast about if you are someone who is interested in AI, who is interested in tech, what you should do. But also, I think her story of not limiting yourself is so inspiring that I think that everyone should definitely listen and have a listen to this podcast. So again, if you haven't subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. Please leave suggestions in the comment below. If you are in tech and AI, please feel free to leave a comment below, and let's just get into it.
So thank you so much for joining me, Stephanie. I really appreciate your time. I'm looking forward to this conversation because I think that when people are willing to just make shifts, one, it's always better for them, but when moms are willing to do it, it just shows just how resilient and how good, you know, moms can be, and how if we really put our minds to anything, we can accomplish it. So I want you to take me back to the beginning, because the reel that I saw of yours that made me be like, I want to speak to her, was you showing that you wanted to leave your finance industry. You wanted to pivot to something else, right? But then you found that you were pregnant. So how is that process like, that, push and pull? What was your process, your thinking process through it all?
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to this conversation as well. I scrolled back to some of your other episodes, and it seems like you really do have a great community of amazing women doing wonderful things. So I'm really honored that you asked for me to be on, and I'm excited for our conversation as well. So I guess if you want me to take you back, the question I would ask is, how far back do you want to go? So let me take you to my first real year in finance. So at the time, I was working at Ernst& Young in London, United Kingdom, and I was in the assurance department. And I remember from 2 to 3 months in, just feeling like this cannot be what I'm going to do with my life.
Mm.
I felt a very strong dissonance with the role and the work that I was doing from the beginning. But as a Nigerian, I grew up being of the understanding that you really choose from four main career paths. You become an accountant, or a doctor or an engineer or something else. I can't remember,
A
or a lawyer.
lawyer.
A lawyer, exactly. So at the time, I was going down the accountant path and I didn't know what else I was going to do. So when I tried to have the conversation with my parents to say, yeah, I'm not sure this is for me, it was kind of like, okay, but what else are you going to do? And
Mm.
I didn't have an answer that fit one of those four paths. So they encouraged me to, just keep going at it, continue with the accounting exams and see if I can become a chartered accountant. At which point, once I have that qualification under my belt, it might then make sense for me to try to think about doing something else. So I stuck with it and did become a chartered accountant, passed all the exams. But what that did was not open doors for me. It actually closed more doors for me because once people see chartered accountant or finance on your resume, that's all they think that you can do. And I consistently tried to move into positions that would give me a different experience. I remember my first role after Ernst& Young was at a nonprofit because I was like, I want my work to matter. I want to do something that is actually helping people and solving real problems. So I worked at cancer research, but it was still the same. Um, I want to be respectful of the industry because I think it has served me well in how I think about business problems. But I ultimately felt like the role was very mundane and monotonous. It felt like we would do the same thing over and over and over again. And so I still felt like I needed to make another pivot. So my next role was actually, I moved back to Nigeria and thought, okay, maybe if I change my entire environment, I can try something new. But
Wow.
even after changing countries, I still found myself in a finance role. So I tried several things, ultimately moved to the United States where I fell into yet another finance role. So at this
Mhm.
point, I've changed countries twice and
Hurry.
still continued to struggle to find someone that would give me another opportunity. So it really got to when I found out that I was pregnant with my daughter, my first daughter, and I I was about 6 months pregnant when I was thinking about what life would look like once she came. And at the time, I had been struggling with a lot of disappointment in myself and just feeling like I hadn't made enough of the talents that I have, the skills that I have, the exposure and experiences that I had been able to build. And I just felt really hopeless. I felt like I couldn't go back to the job that I had been working after I had my daughter, and I needed to figure out what I was going to do next. So at this point, I had tried to change jobs and roles and industries so many times and not been able to get it done. I had also been trying to teach myself how to code on the side, but I wasn't able to do that either because I'm someone that thrives with structure and accountability. So, having tried all these different things and feeling so hopeless about my career, I knew I just had to do something different. And I was starting to think about what I wanted my daughter to look at me for, to know me for, what kind of impression I wanted to give her, what lessons I wanted to teach her. How would she navigate her life with me as a role model if I continued to stay in the same path that I was in? And at the time I couldn't see myself as a strong role model for her because I had just continued to do the same thing over and over again. So I just kind of realized that I would need to do something really drastic. And I thought that the best thing for me to do at that point was to go back to school. And I was fortunate enough to have a role model of sorts in my younger brother because he had previously pivoted his career. He had studied logistics and graduated from college with a logistics degree. While he was at college, he was teaching himself how to code and then realized that that's what he wanted to do. So he moved to the United States from the UK, did a boot camp, and then became a product manager. So I had that kind of track record to see that it's possible to make the change. And if you can find a structured program that can guide you through it, you can actually be successful with that. So with the way that I was feeling despondent and just dissatisfied and disappointed in myself, as well as the role model that I had in my brother and seeing how he was able to accomplish his dream of getting into tech, I decided I was going to do the same thing. And so I was 6 months pregnant and doing research and found that there was a George Washington University program not too far from where I lived at the time, about an hour, 20-minute drive with traffic. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go for it. I talked to my husband about it, and he was incredibly supportive. He's always been my biggest supporter. And he said, it doesn't matter how much it costs, just go for it if you think this is what will make you happy. So I applied, 6 months pregnant. And then when I was 8 months pregnant, I got the letter back that said that I had been accepted. So at this point, it's like, okay, you went for it and you got it. Now are you going to do it? But it felt like a really big sign from the universe, from God, just saying, you can do this. And if you trust yourself, believe in yourself the way that your husband does and, your friends around you do, just put in the work and you'll get there. So that's how I ultimately made the decision to go for it and to pivot into tech.
I love the story because I especially love the fact that you didn't allow like your no to keep you stuck in one place, right? You didn't let, okay, I have to keep doing accounting because, that's what's expected of me, or like, well, like I'm still being pigeonholed. I have to find the next step. And I just love that you just kept being like, what is the next thing? What is the next thing? There has to be something better. I do wonder though, where does that come from? Where like that idea of like you're not going to stop until you get to where you feel like you're supposed to be.
That's a very interesting question. So I had a very interesting upbringing. My mom has a sister and they are incredibly close. So you see her, you see my mom. They were always together.
Five
People
and
thought that
six.
they were twins. Exactly, 5 and 6. And so my aunt had 3 boys, and it's me and my brother. And we were always together. So we would do 4 days in my house and then the weekends with at my aunt's house, the 5 of us kids. So we would alternate that way. They had a really great setup.
Wow.
um, and the parents, they had very different mindsets. So
Mm,
my dad has always been very heavy on corporate, climb the ladder, put in the work, and you'll get recognized. And then that's how you'll, get to the top. And that's how he got to the top. He started out as a journalist in the company, and then he rose to being the country manager of the
wow.
entire business. So that's what he knows, and that's what has always worked well for him. And on the other side, my uncle had a very strong entrepreneurial spirit. He used to be a bank manager, left, and then eventually started his own business and wrote a book about network marketing. And he just had this fire in him that said you can do anything and be anything that you wanted. So across the two of them, I was learning two very different things: corporate
Yeah.
life and climb the ladder, and that's how you get success. But at the same time, I'm being told by my other father and mother, my aunt and uncle, that you can do anything that you want to do. And
Mm,
they called us eagles and said, you are not like chickens eating SHIT on the floor. You are an eagle.
mhm.
You are made to fly and you can do whatever it is that you want to do. So I think it's the dichotomy of those two things that have really shaped my experiences, both in corporate and in business. And I think it's serendipitous that I'm currently doing both, as I'm kind of living out both dreams of my two fathers.
You mentioned obviously that when you were pregnant, you thought about what kind of person that you wanted your daughter to see you as. What kind of person was that? What was that vision? What was that dream? Excuse me. And how did you kind of map out your next step based on that?
Yes, I love that question. And I think so. My dad has always been my biggest hero. And I've always been proud of the success that he's gotten in his life. When I think about what I want my children to know me for, to um, look up to me for, I want them to see me as a trailblazer. I want them to see me as someone that doesn't accept no as an answer. I want them to see me as someone that goes after what she wants, because that's what I ultimately want from them. I want them to see that it's possible to build your dream life. I want them to see that just because most people don't do things a certain way doesn't mean that you have to. I want them to value their reputations. I want them to value the legacy that they'll build for their own children. And everything that I was seeing about myself and the path that I had followed before I pivoted was not that.
Mm.
All of it was pointing to, you keep saying you don't like it here, but you haven't done anything about it. You keep saying you don't want to be in finance, but have you really tried? You keep saying you don't want to work in finance, but you keep listening to people that tell you this is all you can be. And confronting those scenarios and those statements about myself is what really motivated me to say I have to cross this bridge from who I am today to who I want to be. Otherwise, I'm not going to be setting the example that I want to set for my children. That's really what motivated me to do that at that point, as hard as it was to do it when she was 3 months old, because that's when the boot camp started. I knew that I had to stick to it, because otherwise I would fall back into that pattern of believing I couldn't do what I wanted to do and accepting other people's no for my life.
Accepting other people's no from my life. I think that, and I have to ask because as you speak it, I'm recognizing that there is a time as you grow older, and I think it really happens when you have kids where you're like, no, I am in charge of my future. I am the one that gets to make a decision that my kids are going to look at because if I keep relying on someone or trying to please the previous generation, I'm not going to be able to fight for the next generation. And I think that's kind of what you're saying is like you had to step away from that so that you can be the example that she or your children want to see so that they can also have the strength to, move
Exactly.
forward. Yeah, because I think sometimes depending on the culture and society you grow up in, it's like you have to always listen to the elders. And if you don't kind of, not that you
Mhm.
break away from that, but you kind of have to be like,
Yeah.
no, like
Yeah.
I can do it. God has given me my life. It's my life. I have the autonomy
Exactly.
to fulfill it. So I absolutely love that. So you did the boot camp again, and so how did that after the boot camp? How long did it take for you to get to your next role?
Yeah, so the boot camp was a 6-month program. It was part-time in the sense of you could do it with a full-time job, and we would be in person 4 days a week, and then the rest was online learning. And in month 5, they also had a careers program that would work on your resume for you and then start coaching you to build your portfolio and then prep you for interviews. And pretty much as soon as I started the process with the careers office, I started applying. I was like, I'm not going to wait until I can't wait until I finish, because I'm gonna need to start, contributing to my household. My husband's already taken this big leap of faith, and I haven't been generating an income for 5 months at this point, and I need to start doing something. So I started even before I graduated applying. And I had, obviously, my husband also knew that I was looking. And so he knew a few people that were working in tech and started to also have conversations and introducing me to people. So a couple weeks before, I mean, after I had started looking, I got invited to 2 interviews. One was a Fortune 100 company, and then the other was a Fortune 200 company. So one was through an application that I submitted on LinkedIn, and then the other was through my network. And I got offers from both of them. And both of those, I got those offers before I graduated. So I
Wow.
completed the program feeling very confident that I was going to be okay because I had offers, and I was like, okay, this works. But I think I was very lucky, because I know it took some people some time, but I think it speaks to needing to attack it from multiple angles. Yes,
Mm.
definitely apply, but also leverage your network, because those are the 2 things that ultimately worked for me.
So I thought that you also after that, after you got the first job, you also pivoted again to do your own business. What was that process like? What made you make the shift again? And this time again, you were also pregnant. So like, what is
Yes.
going on? He saw
I
you like,
know.
I need to get into a new job.
I know. So the pivot was more of a personal pivot in the sense of I didn't quit my job. I didn't
Mm,
leave my job or go to a new job. I was working my 9 to 5 and I just started a business. So it was a shift in the sense of I no longer thought that I was just a corporate person and I no longer thought that I had to rely on one income. And I started a business that I have been successful with growing. So that's why I call it another pivot. It was another mindset shift that I had to make. And yes, I was pregnant again, but I think at that point I had unlocked something in myself that said, the sky is the limit, like if I want more from life, then it's up to me to go get that more from life. And if I'm not able to get it from my 9 to 5, which I want to be clear, I actually love my job, but I also love this other life of being in control of my time and how I schedule my day and who I work with and the impact that I get to impart on different people. So I'd kind of unlocked something in myself that said I can actually do what I want, and if I want more from life, it's up to me to go get it because I can't just sit around here, even though I've accomplished the tech job dream that I wanted. There's still more that I want out of life. And if I did it before, I can do it again.
I love that. What would you say is for maybe, I don't know if you have moms or some moms who have kind of that like limiting belief of like, well, or maybe they just don't have that capacity. What would you say is perhaps something that could push them out of like that cocoon of like, maybe it's time for you to reach out or, maybe it's time for you to believe more in yourself?
Yeah. I want to be clear because I know I'm laughing about it now, but it's not funny. It's not funny when you're actually in it, when you're
Yeah.
feeling the fear and you're feeling the doubt and you're feeling the constraint of your situation and how it
Hmm.
might be holding you back from what you want to do. So I don't laugh about it now to say it was easy for me. It was not easy for me at all. And I completely understand how it is difficult for most moms because of all the stuff that we carry to attack something like that with all the energy and effort that it needs if you don't have the support, the mindset, and the ability to do it. So I want to first just acknowledge that it is a very difficult thing to do. I do think, though, that confidence comes from taking action. So in the past, I would think that when I get somewhere, that's when I'll
Mm.
start feeling confident. When I've accomplished something, I'll start feeling confident. And so if I haven't yet accomplished the thing, I'm not confident. So there's no way for me to bridge the gap to the two. It's almost like a vicious cycle or catch 22 where you need to do the thing to get here. And so I think because I had crossed that hurdle one time with embracing the discomfort of starting again with a new job in a new industry, losing my 10 years of finance experience, losing and starting from scratch because I had crossed that hurdle one time and then built the confidence by getting promoted twice in 2 years after getting that tech job. I think that showed me that actually confidence comes from taking action. You put one foot in front of the other first and you see that you're okay. And then you realize it's okay to put your next foot in front of the other again, because your brain is naturally going to want to protect you. It's familiar with what it's familiar with. It knows what's safe based on everything that it has experienced thus far. So anything that tries to go outside of those bounds is your brain sending signals this is not safe, we're in danger. And it's going to convince you that you can't do this because it wants to keep you safe. That's just natural biology. But when you do take that step and your brain gets the opportunity to see, oh, we didn't die. Okay, maybe we can take one more step. Maybe we can take another one. Maybe we can take another one. We didn't die. We didn't die. It didn't kill me. Right? So maybe I can do these things. Maybe I can embrace the discomfort of trying new things and seeing how things go. That's ultimately what needs to happen to get the sense of confidence that I now feel. And I still get scared every single day. I want to make that clear. But that's what gets you the confidence to keep doing it over and over again. It really starts with just taking that first step. That first action is what will start to build small mounds of confidence. And over time, you'll have a mountain.
I think what you're basically saying is perhaps the small step can be like looking outside of like what you're currently doing, right? It doesn't have to be the big step. I'm sending my resignation letter
Oh,
out
yeah.
right now.
Yeah. We
Maybe
have to be
I'm
smart. We have to be
yes.
smart about how we're going to do it. I would never say to anyone, quit your job and then try to get a boot camp and then try to get a job. That's what I did, but I was pregnant. I was going to be out of maternity leave anyway. But I think we have to be smart and strategic about how we do that for sure. So, like you said, it could be thinking about what AI tool could I use in my current job? And how can I use that to start building a portfolio of sorts? How can I use that to start talking about it on LinkedIn to share what I'm learning and use that to build my personal brand? It's still within your safe space, right? The threat there is very small, but you're starting to flex the muscle a little bit so that it can grow.
Speaking of AI, you are an advocate of AI, and you create a lot of content about about AI and helping women consider the world of AI. In fact, I'm an AI writer, so I write about AI basically every single day. Why do you see this as an opportunity, and why should moms be interested in perhaps using AI or being in tech?
Yes, I think this is such an important question and an important discussion that we need to be having. And it's one that I struggle with because my opinion in is a little bit, I would say, strong, but I feel like we have a responsibility to be in the rooms where decisions are being made about these tools, how they will
Hmm.
integrate with our lives, how we will use them, and what impact they will have on general society. In tech in general, there's about 25% of the workforce in tech that's female. So when you extrapolate that to AI roles, the numbers are even smaller because it's so new, it's evolving so quickly. But we've seen cases where AI would incorrectly create models or models would incorrectly be created that can impact health situations where Black people may be biased against as a result of some way that the model has been developed. Or we've heard of cases where recruiting systems unfairly flag Black people and prevent them from getting the opportunities for jobs that they're applying for because they were trained on bias data. So some of those things are only caught when we have the right people in the room. And if we don't have people that can shine the light on some of these prejudices and biases that we're all, prone to falling into just because we're human, if we don't have people in those rooms to make sure that some of these things are not put into production and aren't released into general society, we do leave ourselves a little bit exposed. So that's my one strong, um, slightly contrarian point on that. But I also think that AI presents an opportunity for moms in particular because we do a lot, we carry a lot, we wear a lot of things with all the stuff that we have to juggle. And I think AI really presents an opportunity for us to lighten some of that load by getting things done faster, getting things done in a more productive way, saving time, finding ways to make more money, finding ways to save time or save money. There's things that AI can help us do now that we would have had to do manually and struggle to do just because we don't have the capacity to do them. We don't have the time to do them. We don't have the resources to do them. But now with AI as our assistant, we can get things done faster and free up time for other things that we want to do. I can do my job 50% faster than I could 2 years ago because now AI supports me with writing my reports, with analyzing my data, with preparing for my meetings. And that leaves time for me to take breaks during the day. That leaves time for me to work on extending my network. That leaves time for me to take a lunch walk, right? And all of those things would not happen if I was still having to manually do those tasks. So that's it in a work environment. But I also think from a business perspective, if any mom is listening to this that's a business owner, this is where there's significant unlock in terms of how AI can accelerate what you're trying to do. The same way AI can write emails in a corporate setting, it can write emails in your business. It can help you with writing your proposal. It can help you with market research. It can help you with preparing for sales calls. It can help you with managing your books. It can help you with so many things. All the different hats that you have to wear today to be a successful business owner, you can do all of that stuff now because you have AI assistants in the form of Claude or ChatGPT that support you and make it possible for you to accomplish some of the things that historically you would have struggled to just because you don't have the time and capacity to do it. So I think it increases equity for us as moms, particularly Black moms or BIPOC women and men. I think it really increases the equity for us because if we don't tap into the ease and the efficiency gains that we stand to gain from using AI, then we continue to struggle. Then we get left behind. Then we find it harder to succeed. And that's not what I want for us. I want to normalize using AI to make things simpler, to save time, to make money, and to succeed in life.
Have to say that I think your perspective is very interesting, and as someone who writes about it, I use it for this podcast. I'm not gonna lie. There is that aspect of usefulness, and then I have to say that your point that you mentioned earlier, that it's not only like being in the room to make decisions, it's also being in the room as moms because these men are making so many decisions that are impacting the life of our kids, right? Case in point, we had the situation of the boy that committed suicide
Yeah,
because he was speaking to ChatGPT, and
yeah,
you have parents who are starting to sue. And I think that if we had a mom or a black mom or a white mom or any mom in that room to say, perhaps we should, fashion this in a way
yeah,
where kids are not relying on it. And I think even like fashion in a way where we're not losing critical thinking, but it's
yeah,
helping, then that
yeah,
can make it more holistic. Where you have a lot of the people that are making decisions are men who are like,
yeah, for sure.
I just want to run fast. And so like I definitely agree, having that perspective of like, yes, being in the room to help be a voice that is helping to
Yeah.
make the decision is important in one way and another. In what ways do you think that if I want to pivot, can AI help me as a mom or as a
Yeah, absolutely. So
woman?
if I wanted to change careers today, I would be using AI to do several things.
Mm,
One is helping me pull out what transferable skills I have in my experience and my background that can translate to different roles. I would use that to create something of a just like a write up so that I can start to see physically, oh, these are the things that I'm good at. These are the things that I have experience in. These are some of the impacts that I've driven and the value that I've brought in different situations. Because it can be very difficult to see that in yourself unless someone pulls it out of you. So you can use AI to have that dialogue or discussion and then pull that out so that you have things that you can refer back to and see that, oh, I'm actually not starting from scratch because I have, this whole portfolio of things in my background that I can leverage as I'm thinking about this pivot. I would definitely use it to confirm that I'm going in the right direction. We want to be thoughtful about moving into areas that are growing, not moving into areas that are shrinking. So,
mm,
a lot of, let's say, knowledge work that AI can now do very quickly is exposed, I think. And I would be cautious about moving into, like a software engineering role right now as a pivot from a different industry or background because AI can code now. It's no longer the extremely difficult and rare task that it was because AI has advanced so much to where it's building its own next models. Claude 4.6, Opus 4.6 built itself, essentially. So something like that is not necessarily where I would think to go. I would be thinking of roles that are growing really quickly that companies are actively looking to hire for because that's where the demand is. And so that's likely where is going to be safest. So those transferable skills that I get in step one, I want to map them to those fast growing roles and see which ones I might be best positioned for. Then I'm going to start using it to update my resume and transfer those skills to something that ties back to a job description at a company that I might want to work for. And with that, we want to be careful though, because I've definitely seen resumes that are an exact copy and paste of the job description, which I don't like. Yes, you
Yeah.
want the keywords to be present and you want it to be clear that you can do the work that you're being asked to or that's being listed as the position requirements. But you want to do it in a way that is strategic and not a copy paste of the job description. I hire data engineers, data scientists, data analysts, and when I see cases like that, what I'm thinking is that's lazy. What I'm thinking is
Mm.
y- it's not demonstrating the impact that you've had because it's a direct regurgitation of what I'm asking you to bring rather than what you have actually done and achieved. So don't do that, but use it strategically to update your resume so that it does include those keywords and can help you stand out, positioning your transferable skills and the impact that you've had in your other career in a way that will make you um, impressive as a candidate. And then the last way that I would use AI if I'm trying to pivot is once you do secure an interview, I use AI to prepare for interviews. So I'll have an actual conversation. I use it in voice mode, and I'll upload my resume as well as my job description, and then I'll say I'm preparing for this role. Here are the things I'm nervous about. I want you to act as my world class HR professional and a potential interviewer on the panel for this job. I want you to ask me 10 questions that I may not be expecting and the most common questions that I can expect from this interview. And we're going to pretend role play this interview situation. Give me feedback on my answers, help me prepare for the answers, and then tell me what an excellent answer looks like. And then we go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I recently interviewed for a position and I was told I was the standout candidate because I
Nice.
used AI to prepare for this. Ultimately didn't accept it, but it was such a good experience and a really great way to prepare for it and validate that this is how it can be a thought partner and helping me prepare for something that I hadn't done in a while. So those are the steps that I would take.
I wonder though, and I wanted to pick your brain about this because if AI or these tools, AI tools, and agentic AI tools are taking the knowledge working jobs, like you mentioned, the soft skills, the coding, where does it, and I've asked a lot of people this actually, where does it leave? Like there seems to be a gap. Would you say there's a gap between entry level and really people who really know their job, right? So what are the entry level people supposed to do? You can't go from, I just learned to code to becoming like a data engineer or something. How, if I already have this gap with this tool that knows how to do this, what am I supposed to do? Especially as a mom who's like juggling kids
Yeah.
and like a household responsibilities.
Yeah. I think it's, again, another catch-22 situation that a lot of people find themselves in, which is you want me to have 5 years of experience. I don't have 5 years of experience, but how can I get
Hmm.
in and get the experience if you don't give me a chance?
Yeah.
So it's definitely a tough place to be in, which is why I think you have to one, apply for jobs on your own, but also leverage your network and people that can vouch for you and open up the possibility that a company will give you the chance. If I was trying to pivot again, I would be intentional about looking internally and externally. I don't think it's a great idea to rule out your current company right now unless you feel like you're in a toxic environment, that the culture isn't great, the work life balance doesn't exist or anything like that. Like, absolutely, definitely you want to look externally in those cases. But where you already have a track record, if you're already seen as a high performer, if you're already seen to be someone that can move in new spaces and perform well in ambiguous situations, I would definitely leverage that and start having conversations with people that might be in positions where they can lend a good, a good ear to you and help you in getting that new position. And then I would start to volunteer for stretch projects inside of the company that I work for to see how can I start to play with these tools inside of this company in a way that will demonstrate that I have the skills and I can execute on this task that would be needed for this new job. And then on the side, I think that when you're pivoting, it's absolutely crucial to have a portfolio of your own that has something that demonstrates that you can do the work that you would need to be doing inside of your new role. Where it becomes difficult is, like you said, as a mom with kids and household responsibilities, and you have this job. Now you have to go learn how to do all these other things. And it is it's incredibly difficult. When I was pivoting, the only way I was able to do it is because of the support that I had in my husband. He would leave work early, and he's fortunate to be flexible enough to control his schedule. He would leave work early and come home at 3 o'clock so that I could leave at 3 o'clock and drive to school for the evening classes. And then I would come home and work until 2 a.m. to learn and practice and all of that stuff. But if I didn't have that support, I would not have been able to do it because I have to be home with my daughter. So I think, in as much as it's possible to find areas of support, people that you can lean on in this tough time, if it's possible to, set aside some funds to hire a babysitter or a nanny or something else that can free up the time that you will need to dedicate to building those skills and practicing and then working on the networking and stuff like that. It's definitely difficult. I don't want to minimize it at all because it's a challenge, but at the same time, I think that good things come hard sometimes, and sometimes you just have to do what you can do. Don't kill yourself, but do what you can do to, embrace a little discomfort for a short amount of time for a season to be able to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and I would just add to that because as someone who's trying to build a podcast, it is like that idea mindset of like, even if it's just one thing a day that you can do, there's like we talked about earlier of the steps, right? It's not going to be everybody that can do it in a year. You might just have to take it step by step and just keep learning, keep improving,
Yeah.
keep putting yourself in front of other people, and knowing that time will pass anyway. So either you keep passing with time or you
Yeah,
just stop, right? It's better to just keep
absolutely.
moving, like, keep moving forward than to stop and you stop. Whereas if you keep going,
Absolutely.
anything is still possible. You can meet the right person. It doesn't need to take that much time. It's not really how fast, it's how it's all strategy and all strategic. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. I love that.
So, we're coming to the end. One thing I do have to ask you, there are a lot of layoffs right now across industry, but we're seeing it particularly in the tech industry as well. So if we're trying to make a strategic move into an industry that is kind of like fluid, you're never really like secure. Um, how do you do that while being cognizant of like this whole like I don't know, the jobs that are here today are eliminated tomorrow because it is like that industry. Sometimes I feel like they bite off more than they can chew, and then they let go of everybody.
Yeah. This one I feel very deeply, and I have so much sympathy for all of the people that are getting laid off because I can't even imagine what it must be like to be going through that. And I just want to send all the love and encouragement to anyone that's going through that right now and acknowledge that while we're talking about pivoting and talking about AI, and it's easy to open my mouth and say all these things, but I do know that there is a real fear of being laid off. And I actually almost was in that
Mm,
situation. After I got my second promotion, I started looking externally and thinking about what do I want to do next. And I had applied for a role at Amazon that I got, and I had accepted it and was going to take it, but then was convinced by my current employer to stay in my current role.
Good. Thank God.
Um, it all worked out. Praise Jesus. But 3 months later, 18,000 people were laid off at
Mhm.
Amazon. And just based on last in, first out principles, I probably would have been one of them. Right.
Yeah.
So that's why, going back to my last point of, definitely don't discount your current position, like your current company, and see, definitely investigate whether it's possible for you to flex the new muscle that you're building where you are. See if there's ways that you can demonstrate new technology skills or new AI capabilities where you are, even as you're thinking about looking externally and pivoting externally. Because the worst case scenario is you do start to become known as someone that's embracing change and embracing innovation and trying new things and able to save X hours because you built this new process, you automated X thing, or because you've implemented something with what you're learning where you are and become known as someone that can do those things. If you make a step and something goes wrong there, you can try to come back.
Yeah.
So I think, like, just continuing to work on how you're seen and positioning yourself as someone that's embracing change and innovation will help. Now, it's definitely a difficult question to answer, because I haven't been laid off before, and I have no idea what it's like, and knock on wood, we'll never find out. um, but I definitely know that it's a valid fear for anyone that's thinking about pivoting, which is why I would encourage anyone that's thinking about pivoting to a new industry to make sure you're going to a fast growing industry or applying to a role that is in a fast growing space or a fast growing high demand role, some of which include things like machine learning, operations engineer, or revenue operations or automation, and pretty much anything in the data space. I would say data engineering, data analysis, data scientist. Those are all really strong growth areas in the tech space that I would have my eye on if I was trying to pivot to tech right now, because all of that is supporting the direction that AI is going in and is unlikely to be impacted by layoffs just because of where the demand is to support AI. Like I said, I would not try to go to a shrinking space like software engineering. Um, and just think about, in addition to thinking about the roles that are fast growing, also thinking about the industries that are fast growing. So, like I said, knowledge workers are especially at risk. And so, if you can find something that's in an innovative area, that would only help. But definitely try to set yourself up for success where you are right now. Stack the savings so that you have, at least 6 months of your expenses and your healthcare and all of that good stuff sorted just in case anything happens, and then hold on to those savings now. um, and those are just some things that I would think about if you're trying to pivot right now, as steps that can, help give you some cushion and protect you a little bit.
Thank you, Stephanie. I think you have provided so many actionable steps and so many actionable advice. So I am so grateful for that. How can people reach out to you? I know there's Instagram. Is there other platforms as well?
Yes, of course. So I am doing something different again, and I'm trying to build my personal brand on Instagram. I was terrified before I started it, terrified every day when I post, but here I am taking one step every single day and building that muscle that tells me that I'm not going to die when I post. So you can find me on Instagram at StephXTech. Just the word Steph, the letter X, and then tech. And follow me if you enjoyed this conversation. This is all the stuff that I talk about on my page, along with mindset shifts that are needed to make a pivot and do new things, and tools and tips that I share about how to use AI to build leverage in your life and in your career. So definitely find me and follow me over there.
Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who has listened. Please feel free to go follow Stephanie and please feel free to follow this podcast. And we'll see you next time on Busy Moms Get It Done.